Preston Bell Charles III. We'll hear more about Preston later. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dave. Thank you.
And I'm Marcellus.
We did not practice this at all. Welcome to True Theater. Yeah, thank you so much. This is the last, thank you. This is the last show of our 13th season. You know, we're always grateful to our audiences for coming out, but tonight in particular, between the scorching heat and the threatening rain, the FCC game, and the whole traffic craziness out there, those of you who made it in person, we just couldn't thank you enough for braving the elements. So welcome, thank you.
Any first-timers in the audience tonight? Nice. Well, you are in for a real treat.
Yes, we have a... Is it still on? You can hear me, right? We have a lot of great things going on here for you tonight. We've got that fun little thing a lot of you saw where you can fill out your best or worst or weirdest gift, and we'll read some of those after the intermission. We're selling t-shirts. I see some of you wearing them already. Thank you in advance. We're selling subscriptions at intermission for season 14 at the lowest price anybody's going to be able to get them, so you'll want to hit the box office for that. And of course, we've got 5 great stories for you tonight.
And if we're lucky, we might hear some extraneous crowd noise from the FC game going on at TQL Stadium.
Nice. Fingers crossed.
Right.
Yeah. For those of you watching from home, hello. We are coming to you from Cincinnati, Ohio's beautiful downtown and historic Memorial Hall.
And a big thank you to everyone here for always making us feel welcome and helping our shows run smoothly.
Yes, and a big thank you too to Norse Media, the NKU student-run media organization who is live streaming this show and also sponsoring the rental of the equipment to make that possible. Without their help, with that sponsorship, that makes this live streaming affordable.
But affordable doesn't equal free.
Yeah.
And if you're watching for free from home,
or if anybody is within earshot and is interested in paying it forward so people in the future can watch for free from home, then know that donating to True Theater is very, very easy.
And we're more than happy to take your donations. Now, donations can be made easily through our website or by texting the code TRUE13 to the number 44321. That's TRUE13 to the number 44321. You'll receive a link back from there, and it'll be obvious what to do after that.
Thank you in advance for your generosity. Please remember, no donation is too small or too big. You could try us.
And between your donations and our growing board, we're looking forward to the growth of True Theater.
Indeed, me too. That's right, he wrote. As our board grows larger, our future looks brighter. At our last show, we introduced you to 2 new board members, Marcellus Harris here, and Marissa Staples, who unfortunately missed an airplane and couldn't be with us tonight. But since then, we've added 2 new people to our board.
One of whom is Annette Ucci, who, if you've been here before, you know she's doing a ton of work behind the scenes, both before and during the show, to make what we're doing look effortless and easy.
Yeah. She's a big deal. And also Chris Strobel, 2-time storyteller at True Theater and Associate Professor of Electronics, Media, and Broadcasting at Northern Kentucky University, and the Vice Chair at the Communications College of Informatics there, and the Faculty Director of the aforementioned Norse Media. So a big welcome to both Annette and Chris. Thank you both. But enough about us.
Yes. We all know why you're here, to hear some stories. At True Theater, we always say that everyone has a story to tell, and the only difference between strangers and friends is the sharing of that story. Tonight, you're going to make 5 new friends. Your first new friend tonight works in local government communications in Troy, Ohio, home of the Strawberry Festival, which, sadly, you just missed. It was in June. and she is on the board of the Troy Hayner Cultural Center. She enjoys exploring both Ohio and Boston with her boyfriend John, earning the begrudging affection of her cat, Pterodactyl, and admiring the artistic and personal achievements of her very attractive and talented friends. Please welcome Lauren Karch.
I'm glad I made it here. So cool. So about 5 years ago, I found myself single for the first time in quite a while. I had a really long-term relationship end, and I had to consign a wedding dress to this place called Off-White Bridal, and it was just trauma all around. But I do think I made it harder than it needed to be by deciding I was going to try online dating for the first time in my early 30s. There are a lot of apps available, a lot of options. The dating app I decided to use was called Hinge, and the way that it worked, you posted 3 photos of yourself, you answered 3 fun questions, you got to pick your fun questions, so that was your profile. And then, interested parties could request to start a conversation based on one of your fun answers. So very cute, and nothing weird Gen Z video stuff. But the questions were things like, what's your favorite movie? Or what do you want to accomplish in the next year? But my favorite one, because I felt like I had a really good answer, was what's the weirdest gift you've ever received? And so I typed out, when I was 19, my grandmother gifted me 2 cemetery plots. One for me and one for a spouse, fellas. And when I tell you, I was getting hits, I was getting notifications on my phone. I would get questions like, what's the square footage of the extra plot? Or tell me more about the view from the cemetery. This was the gift that really kept on giving. And I want to make it clear, I don't misrepresent myself on the internet. I do have 2 cemetery plots. They're in West Milton, Ohio. It's about 45 minutes outside of Dayton, the town where I grew up. It's a town of about 4,000 people. I don't know the square footage of the plots, but view-wise, like most things in West Milton, you can see the grain elevator and the McDonald's pretty well. So, yeah, my grandfather had been buried at this cemetery when I was really young, which, sad, but I honestly have a lot of nice memories of going on walks in this cemetery as a kid. And every Memorial Day, my mom and my grandma would go down and decorate my grandfather's headstone with flowers. Not real flowers. My grandma would buy the silk flowers from Wertz's Five and Dime because she said they could use the business, and I think she was also getting all the town gossip there. At one point, she stopped replacing the silk flowers every year and just started buying spray paint at Wertz's Five and Dime to spruce up last year's fake flowers. So it was really easy to find where my grandfather's headstone was, and my grandmother planned to be buried there as well. But at some point, I think when I was in college, my grandma heard, through the grapevine, probably at Wertz's Five and Dime, that the cemetery was starting to fill up. Even a big cemetery in a small town, reaches maximum occupancy at some point. So she got on the horn, she called her children, friends, neighbors. I am very certain she talked to the Orkin man and her handyman to see who wanted in. I don't think she necessarily, felt like we all needed to be buried together, it wasn't some weird blood is thickest kind of thing. But she didn't want anybody to feel left out. She didn't want somebody who wanted to be buried, near her and her family to end up deep sixed in the new cemetery outside of town. So she ended up buying several plots together. I don't remember ever being asked about this. My mom says somebody told me. I remember it differently in that I do not remember this at all. But I was home from college for one Christmas, and my mom just kind of throws it out there. She goes, "Oh, Grandma and I got your cemetery plot paid for." And I said, "Is that a threat?" But no, it was a Christmas gift. And so my mom explained about the overfull cemetery, and She also told me that, like most gifts from my grandma, this came with a receipt. If I didn't use one or both plots, I could just, return those extra plots to the township. But when I was younger, I was very certain that, of course, I would find, a life partner, and I didn't want some like rando hanging out in our like Chuck E. Cheese party area of the cemetery. So no, I said I will definitely keep these. So it was a nice gift. It was kind of complicated. Like, I mean, you know that you're in the perpetual care of your hometown. Like, I know the people who mow the grass there. The county coroner was my childhood pediatrician and also like our assistant athletic director. And the guy who took over as the funeral home director a few years ago is a friend of mine from high school. He took over from the person who'd been doing that for like 200 years. So now I have to outlive my friend Jonathan's career, or else like he'll embalm me personally and probably see me naked, and that's really awkward. So it's just like this whole thing. Like, I don't live in my hometown anymore. Most of my cousins don't, but we all visit pretty often. And there's that Latin phrase about remember your death. It's pretty freaking hard to forget it when your final resting place, flies by the passenger window on the way to your mom's house right before you get to the grain elevator. So it's just kind of like always been a thing. But like I said, a few years ago when I was just feeling really like old and alone, I started really thinking about my grave, as you do. And I was feeling like I just didn't, I didn't have time to meet somebody new before I would end up, planted at Riverside Cemetery, which I know is kind of stupid, like I wasn't that old, but you have to get where I come from. Like, my parents met each other when they were 14. A lot of my friends, even folks I've met as an adult, met their significant other in college or in their early 20s, and you get to grow up together that way. And I was just like really grieving that idea. So whenever I met somebody I liked or was interested in, or whenever I went on a first date that went well, I kind of thought, I don't have this person's past, but I could have their whole future. Like, this guy's just showing up now, this late season character just now turning up in my life. Like, the least he could do is agree to hang out with like my dad and Mr. Paulus from church until the earth implodes into the sun. But just, nothing really panned out. And at the same time, like while I was having that adventure, my grandmother's health was starting to fail. And for the last couple years of her life, my mom and my aunt took care of my grandmother at home. So for a lot of that time period, whenever I had time, and later whenever I had a negative COVID test, I would go and, try to spend time with my family, see what they needed, maybe, eat dinner with my grandma, or I would play her favorite game, which was Chinese checkers. One time I asked her what her secret to Chinese checkers was, because she always won. And she said that it was the same as how she wanted everything else, just sheer dumb luck. She said that, when she had moved to our hometown for my grandfather's job, she didn't know anything about it, but it turned out to be the perfect home for her. You never know, who your children or grandchildren are going to be, and we ended up being the perfect family for her. She would never have guessed that she would have married my grandfather. Her friends, her job, everything just kind of, she didn't know what she wanted until she had it. So she felt like she had this wonderfully lucky life. So she passed away in December of 2020, and we had this very nice, kind of cold, COVID-era graveside service for her. So I was there, near my grandmother's gravesite, standing in my own gravesite, listening to her pastor. And he did this thing I hadn't seen before. He talked about how, in our faith, the body dies, but the spirit lives on. And so he asked everyone to share something they'd miss, not about my grandma, but about like her corporeal form. So I said, I'd miss her hugs. My cousin said that he'd miss her neon blazers, or the way she could never like really eyeball a casserole just right. And so I thought that was cool, and like the pastor didn't copyright that. You can use it for your own Methodist funeral. But it was nice, but standing there, I know that that's true. I know that only your body ends up at the cemetery, but I'm standing there kind of, wide stancing it across my two grave sites. And I just felt kind of sad, feeling like, what if I never find someone to be buried next to me? I feel like I'm kind of wasting that hope of my grandma's that she had for me, and also her $425. So, I just felt kind of forlorn about it. But after the service, I was hanging out with my cousins and my friend Jonathan, the mortician, and we were talking about, the day and my grandma, and something kind of came up. It turns out my oldest cousin had apparently been asked if he wanted a cemetery plot. Like, I don't know how. But he said no, which again, his loss. And some assumptions were made, and my younger cousin, his sister, also didn't get a cemetery plot, but she'd never been asked and she didn't know anything about it until right now. And so she was kind of disappointed. She didn't know we were all gonna be buried together, except for apparently her and her brother. And she wanted in, but as was foretold, now the cemetery is full up. There are no more spaces in that section available. My cousin is unmarried. I'm unmarried. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm also unmarried. And so, how like a lot of discussion ensued at the kids' table of 30 to 40-year-old adults, and how some people have an agreement, like if you're such and such an age and you're not married, you'll get married to each other. We kind of landed on something like that. If neither of us is married at the time of our death, of either of our deaths, my cousin's going to go in my spousal plot. But don't worry, if I do get married, I can always have an urn buried with me as an accessory. So that is still an option for me. But it was nice. It turns out, neither life nor death comes made to order, and thank God for that. I think my grandma gave me the gift of some clarity on that subject, and she also gave me the gift of a family who will make sure that I am really never alone. So, yeah. Thank you, guys.
One more time for Lauren. And just out of curiosity, how big is the plot? Our second storyteller tonight has been a professor at the University of Dayton for 28 years, teaching about the business of sports. He is a happy husband and the proud father of 4, Garrett, Riley, Leah, and Elena. His happy place, when not with his family, is on his bike. Please welcome Peter Titlebaum.
I'm going to tell you a story about my mother, Maxanne Titlebaum. She had a superpower of making you feel like you were the only one in the room. And her gift to me and my brother and sister, and I have a brother who's a year older and a sister who's 5, and we all have an appreciation. She shared with us her passion for sport. We grew up in Rochester, New York, and while we were not close to a major city, we had an affinity to New York teams. Mom decided, 1969, 1970, we were going to become New York Knicks fans. Had never followed a team before, And you had to really work at being a fan in 1969 to 1970. Basketball was not as popular as it is today. And so, first off, we listened to the games on the radio. Marv Albert was doing the play-by-play for the New York Knicks. Mom bought me basketball cards. So I had basketball cards, and I still have them to this day in my office. And so I use it as a show and tell for my students. And so this was the makeup of the team. We had Dick Barnett, who was known as Sleepy. He was the veteran on the team. You had Walt Frazier, who was known as Clyde, as in Bonnie and Clyde. You had Bill Bradley, who was a Rhodes Scholar. You had Dave DeBusschere, who when he came up, not only did he play professional basketball, he also pitched for the Chicago White Sox. So one of the first two athletes. And then there was Mom and my favorite player, and that was Willis Reed. Willis Reed was a 6'10" center from Grambling University. Now, if you look at these cards, and this is what I show people when they come to my office, and I'll show this to my student, and I say, take a look at these cards. Yeah, they're old. I go, yeah, I got that. What's wrong with these cards? And they look, and I don't see it. I go, yeah, look really closely. They had to wear their jerseys backwards because nobody knew who they were unless they had their jerseys backwards. That's how basketball was in 1969 or 70. So that's a perspective of how hard you had to work at being a fan. So this was a Cinderella season. The New York Knicks went 60-22. And they also had a 19-game winning streak, which wasn't broken until a couple years ago when the Golden State Warriors broke that record. In the first round of the playoffs, they had to play the Baltimore Bullets. I know, a terrible name for a team. They since have moved to Washington. And they wound up winning 4-3. In the second round, they got the Milwaukee Bucks. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks 4-1. The Milwaukee Bucks were led by Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the Big O, Oscar Robertson, who's one of our Cincinnati natives. In the finals, they got the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, the New York Knicks are up 3-2, but at the end of Game 5, Willis Reed, our favorite player, goes down and gets hurt, and he'd been hurt on and off during this great season. So much so that my mom decided to send him get well cards. A true fan, you can't ask for more than that. So now it comes Game 6, there's no Willis Reed. Wilt Chamberlain scores 45 points. They also have Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, who are still considered some of the greatest players in NBA history. And Game 7 is in New York. This is one of the most iconic moments in the NBA. And you start with, we're watching the game on TV, and you have none other than Howard Cosell doing an interview with Red Holtzman. And he says, do you think Willis can play tonight? And Red Holtzman says, we'd like to think that he could. Just having him here on the court could make the difference. But we don't know if Willis is going to be able to play. So the team starts warming up. Still no Willis Reed. Willis Reed is in the locker room getting a shot of cortisone into his knee, so hopefully he might be able to play. Then all of a sudden the announcer goes, and here comes Willis. And they're like, the Lakers turn around and look, and now this is the new year for the Madison Square Garden. It was brand new, totally renovated in 1969. 19,500 fans are on their feet cheering for their team, but now all of a sudden they say, here comes Willis. Now they're on their feet, they're going crazy. Somebody bounces the basketball to Willis Reed, and he hits a warm-up shot. Crowd goes crazy. You can clap. Now, then he gets another warm-up shot. Crowd is still on its feet. At this point, the Lakers have left the court, and they're just looking, going, how is this man even out there? And then they announce the players to start the game. Willis Reed, the captain, last one out. You can tell he's hurt, he's hobbling, but somehow the Knicks get the tip. And they come down court, they pass the ball to Willis, he hits an 18-footer. Good. Crowd's going crazy. He doesn't even get back to half court because he's in that much pain. And the Knicks are on a breakaway. They see Willis, they give him a pass, he hits another 20-footer this time. The game's over. And I mean, they never lost the lead in the entire game. They wound up winning 113-99. He only scored 4 points. He only played 20 minutes, and he was MVP of the season and the championship series. And you're like, it doesn't get better than that. So now, a year passes, and my mom, not to be outdone, sees that Dave DeBuscher has written a book called The Open Man, and she buys it for me. And this is a 277 hard-page book. Never had a hard-page book before. And my mom's determined, doesn't matter that I'm dyslexic, you're going to get through that book. So I have this appreciation, because my mom, the gift she gave me was a passion for sports. And so by having that, I did sports all through high school, all through college, and still had an appreciation for sport. Now, we are 22 years later. I now have my own family. And I have a 7-year-old. And my 7-year-old, Garrett, says, who is your favorite team? He's fishing. And I go, the 1969-70 New York Knicks. And he's like, no, I mean today. And I go, sorry, kid, same answer. I said, as I teach the business side of sports, and at this point I'm at Tulane University, I said, it's a business, and I see business, and I help people, but I'm doing my coaching with making people uncomfortable, similar to as a regular coach. I don't mess with people's bodies anymore. They frown on that. So as a college professor, I get this opportunity to be at a conference and do a presentation. And it's at Madison Square Garden. I've never been to Madison Square Garden. And it's 25 years after the Knicks had won the championship. So we're now in 1995. And I get a chance to sit courtside. I get a chance to be on the upper level. And I get to talk to the New York Knicks front office staff. But you have to understand, they're not in the best mood because they had gotten to the championship game, 7th game of the series, and lost to the Houston Rockets. So I'm sitting there talking to the front office staff, and I'm thinking, I'm never going to get closer than this to ask a favor. And they're like, what? And I go, is there any chance I can get a copy of the end 69-70 championship game with Willis Reed coming out after being shot with cortisone? And the guy looks at me and goes, even if I could, why would I? And I said, that's a fair question. I said, you have to understand, this is important to me and my mom. Mom was a big fan, sent Willis Reed get well cards. It was very important to us. And she had recently been diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And if it could give her 5 minutes of lucidity, it'd be worth its weight in gold. And knowing I've got to stop talking. So I give him my business card. I said, look, do what you can. I appreciate it. It was great meeting you. Meantime, I have to take a plane back to New Orleans, and I get back to New Orleans, 48 hours, I get a UPS package from the New York Knicks. Now you have to understand, this isn't like you can go on and just Google it and see this. And you couldn't just buy a DVD of this. To get a VHS tape of this, someone had to dub the original to make this copy. So now I have to call my father and explain what I want. And so I call my father. I say, Bernie, can you help me? And Bernie says, you don't know me well enough to call me Bernie. But I explained the situation, tell him, I said, look, this is the last gift I can give Mom. And he's like, sure, send it my way. I do. And then he calls me up and reports back. He says, look, I could see recognition. I could see a smile. So at the end of the day, it was worth its weight in gold. Now, Max Ann Titlebaum passed away May 3rd, 1999. And you think, well, this is poetic. It's really like 30 years since the 69-70 team. But this year, March 21st, this year, Willis Reed died. Willis Reed lived to 80. Well, I had friends, 2 friends, really good ones, who sent me sympathy cards, knowing how much this meant to me and my family, and understood our gift. Thank you very much.
One more time for Peter. Before we bring out our next storyteller, I just want to tell you a little bit about our upcoming season. We're very excited. We've got 3 themes we're ready to share with you, and a 4th that you're going to vote on. How do you like that? So for next year, we're here October 25th, January 26th, or do I have it the other way around? Yeah. October 26th, January 25th, April 25th, June 25th, with the themes True Hood, which are going to be 5 stories representing and glorifying 5 different neighborhoods of Cincinnati. This is based on something you're going to hear a little bit about later, a documentary that Preston has made, and he suggested the theme, and we love it. So that's going to be our first show of the season. Second, we're going to have True, I can't remember. It's True Money. Hey, how about that? We could all use a little true money in our life, and then we'll have 5 stories about that. And then True Hand. What an interesting theme. Boy, there are probably a lot of ways stories could go for that theme. And during intermission, we're going to give you a chance to vote on our season 4th season. This QR code will be on the screen again at intermission. But if you go there, there's going to be 4 options for you to choose from, and you could select them all. But the one with the most votes is going to win. And you folks at home can play as well. You're going to have a choice between True Forgiveness, True Scam, True Wedding, and True Magic. Okay, True Magic always does well, but it's an also ran every time it shows up, so we'll see how it works out this time. So that's going to be some fun, I think. You guys can get to vote, and also we're selling subscriptions to that season at intermission. The box office is open. $60. What? Yeah, $60, because tickets for 1 show are just like $20. So 60 for 4 is like buy 3, get 1 free. And tonight is the only night we're making that available. So if you want your subscription, and come on, you know you do, go on down to the box office and get that at intermission. Thank you in advance for your support. All right. Cool. A champion for healthcare children, crime victims, public schools, and teachers, our third storyteller tonight is the first woman to hold the House District 67 seat in Kentucky, serving the people of Campbell County, and the fifth woman ever to be elected to House leadership in Kentucky. And if that's not impressive enough, she's the owner of the Yoga Bar in New York, in Newport, right here in Kentucky. Quite a commute, right? No, Newport, right? The Yoga Bar is a center for mindfulness, which has become a thriving hub for community involvement and charitable fundraising. Her clients have included the Reds, the Bengals, and our friends playing over at TQL tonight, among many others. She's also provided mindfulness courses and the like for people from local first responders to Fortune 500 companies. On top of all of that, she coordinates international mindfulness retreats, sits on several boards, and dotes on her rescue animals, Steve, Finlay, and Kevin. Somewhere in all of that, and as you're about to hear first in her thoughts, is her overly loving and supportive husband, Mike. My friend, Rachel Barber. Rachel Roberts. Jesus Christ. I know her, Rachel.
Give it up for David Levine. Hi, everyone. My darling husband, Mike, is impossible to buy gifts for. Now, it's possible that you think your spouse is also impossible to buy gifts for, and if that's true for you, I'm sorry. I hope this story makes you feel seen. We should probably start some sort of a support group for each other. I'm not alone in this. All of my friends also think he's impossible to buy gifts for, which is why for Christmas we get gifts for us, which are really gifts for me because no one knows how to buy anything for him. Now, I realize this isn't the biggest problem in the world. There are very real problems in the world. I'm not making light of big problems. I'm just telling you that for me, I generally really like to give gifts. I think I'm pretty good at it where my friends and loved ones are concerned, but where my husband is concerned, I am an abject failure at gift giving. Here are some examples. One year, I spent way too much time researching the fanciest, newest video game, even though I'd never seen him play video games, but I was sure that he would love it. I still, to this day, have never seen him play video games, and now there's this headset that sits in the closet that I see every time I go to grab grocery bags that I think someday soon will be a collectible item that I can sell to possibly buy him a worthy gift in the future. Another example, and maybe the piece de resistance of my failed gifts, is the year I thought, I know, I'm gonna get him an investment. I'm gonna buy him some Bitcoin, just a little. I was really anxious about this gift, so I bought it early in November, and by the time I gave it to him for Christmas, it had already lost 40% of its value. Now, in recent years, I've kind of just deferred to shoes, because he's kind of a sneakerhead, and shoes are a relatively safe bet. But last year, shoes were not an option, because last year was his 50th birthday. So right after Christmas, his birthday's in April, right after Christmas, the anxiety started to build at the need to buy him the perfect tangible gift that would mark such a milestone that I would, of course, then give to him at the perfectly curated dinner on his birthday. This would be a tour de force of gift giving that would surely make all of the difference. Now, I had no idea what to get him, so I started early in the year peppering in little breadcrumbs into conversations to see if any of them might manifest into the perfect gift. I'd say things that would bring up an artist that maybe he loved or a splurge he wouldn't allow himself to indulge in, but none of these led to the perfect gift. And it went on like this for many months. Now, I should tell you that I'm also an impatient gift giver. This is important to know because generally for Christmas, we end up opening our gifts around Christmas Eve or the eve of Christmas Eve or the eve of Christmas Eve because I just like to rip that bad gift Band-Aid off as fast as possible. But again, I got to come up with the perfect gift to give at the perfect time, which is his actual birthday. And I still don't know what that gift is. So now we get to about 6 weeks before his birthday, and I'm in DEFCON 5 freak out mode. But we are out one evening and we have this conversation that sparks a memory. My husband's a designer and he'd once mentioned this very obscure brand of watch that only designers really know, and I remembered it and I said, hey baby, do you ever think about that fancy watch you once mentioned? And he said, oh no, I've got my smartwatch now and I love it, so why would I ever want a watch again? And the first reaction was, oh, shit, there goes another gift idea. But then Eureka. So as soon as I could, I'd get to my computer and I'd go to the smartwatch manufacturer's website because the idea, the perfect gift, is to get him, of course, an even smarter fancy watch. So I go on the site and I find their smartest, their fanciest watch, and I build it all and I put it in the cart, and then I have immediate sticker shock because I am what you would politely call frugal and impolitely call cheap. But it's okay, this is his 50th birthday, right? And I love him so much, and I wanted to get him a splurge, and I had saved for a splurge. So I put it in the cart, and I click purchase very proudly, and then the computer returns the 3 worst words in the world: out of stock. Fuck. Now is when you should know that I am hyper-competitive. So this was not a deterrent for me. No, this was a challenge. So then I jump on the phone and I start calling all of their brick and mortar stores, sure that somebody's still got to have one in stock. But no. However, sidebar, there was one really helpful clerk who said, I think there's still one left in Alexandria, Virginia. I know you said you live in Kentucky, but if you jump in your car and drive there real quick, it might still be there. For reasons I still cannot explain, she assured me it could not be shipped. Now, having exhausted the interwebs and all US-based brick and mortar stores, there was still one chance, and that was to call the brand partner, which was international. So I wait, I do the time conversion, I call them the next day, and I get a hold of someone, and lo and behold, they have the watch, thank goodness. I do the euro conversion, it's a little more, but okay, we are too deep into this to go back now. Yes, I will purchase it. And the clerk says, great, I'm gonna ship it to you, you have some choices, when do you need it by? And I tell them the birthday that I need it by, the date, and they say, ooh, you're gonna need to pay for international overnight DHL shipping for that. DHL shipping, mind you, that costs more than every non-smartwatch I have ever owned in my life. But again, we are far too deep in at this point. So I say, okay. And then they tell me that I'm going to have to be home, of course, to sign for this package. It's okay, just be there sometime Wednesday, sometime between all day and all night. That should be convenient for you. So I camp out on my front porch awkwardly, but I had one meeting that I had to go to, and wouldn't you know it, the driver comes then. They leave me a lovely note that says, so sorry to miss you, we'll be back tomorrow, sometime between all day and all night. So Thursday, again, I camp out on the front porch, but this time it works out, right? They show up, I sign for it, I hold in my hands this beautifully bowed, very well-branded box. I breathe a giant sigh of relief, and I call my best friend Jess to tell her. Jess knows the plight of gift giving for my husband. She knows how hard I've been working to try and find the perfect gift. She agrees it's the perfect gift. I've finally broken the streak of horrible gifts. This is fantastic. And then I enjoy a few days of bliss where I have a gift that is perfect and an evening that is perfectly planned. And then about 4 days before Mike's birthday, we are at the pool with our pandemic pod. Remember those, right? My best friend Jess, her husband, her husband's Nick. Sorry, that was weird. Her husband Nick. And then our next door neighbors, Brian and Andrea. And we're enjoying a lovely day at the pool. Mike's been in the water for a while. He stands up out of the pool and he goes like this and he goes, oh darn, I forgot to set my watch to water mode. Now it's not working right. And I am beaming. Because this just affirms that I've purchased for him the perfect gift. Now his smartwatch is broken. It's going to be great. And as I'm sitting there beaming with pride, I hear out of my left ear my previous to this best friend Jess go, oh no, not your fancy new birthday watch. And the surprise of my birthday gift is gone. But it's not gone yet because my brain is moving really quickly and I'm usually really good at covering, and I'm like, maybe you didn't hear it. Maybe I can switch the conversation. It's going to be great. And then I see Mike staring directly at me going, do I have a fancy new birthday watch? And I am stammering. I can still fix this. I can still fix this. And Jess doesn't quite realize what's happened yet. And she's like, yeah, oh, shoot. Sorry, Rach. And now I am literally stammering like gibberish words coming out of my mouth trying to fix this. And Jess's husband, Nick, very unhelpfully goes, well, Rach, you could have tried to cover that a little better. Thanks. So I look at my darling husband and I say, well, baby, would you like your birthday gift? So I leave the pool and I go to get the gift. And the whole time I'm self-flagellating over how stupid it was to spend this much money on a gift and how everything's ruined now. And then I'm trying to fix my mind as I'm bringing it back down. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter when he gets it. It didn't have to be at the perfect time. It's still the perfect gift, right? He'll get to wear it to dinner now. It'll be great. This is fine, Rachel. Everything is fine. And I take the gift down to the pool, and I sheepishly hand it to him, and I say, "Here, baby, I hope you like your birthday present." And he starts to unwrap his prettily bowed and very well-branded box. And he's putting it all together, and Nick swims over to him, and he looks at it, and he goes, "Huh, let me get this straight. That's basically like the same smartwatch we all have, except she paid a lot more for it, and like the name's on the band or something like that." So now the surprise is gone, and the gift itself has been tainted. Jess, seeing her out for no longer being the villain in this story, shoots eye daggers at her husband across the pool, and it's like, "Nick!" And Nick goes, "What? I thought you were the villain of the story." And Jess goes, and our friends Brian and Andrea, who've been trying to drown themselves out of the awkward soup that is the pool, are like, "Well, she was, but now you are." And everyone starts hysterically laughing, except for me. I'm shattered because I have failed at yet another gift. And I can feel myself starting to well up, which is very bad because once I start to cry, I cannot stop. So I excuse myself to go slide down my own shame spiral in solitude. And as I'm now alone, sliding down my spiral past how dumb it was to spend this much, how ridiculous I am to get so attached to things, how silly it is that I can't figure out a good gift for the person I love the most in my life, and then damn it, it's not supposed to be about me. It's supposed to be about Mike. It's his 50th birthday. How did I let this happen? And fuck, I should have just bought him a fucking pair of shoes. Now, this is where the story was going to end. But about 2 weeks ago, I found myself in another pool with the same group of beloved friends. And it was about a week before my 50th birthday. And I was oblivious, reading a book, and everyone kept inviting me to the pool, but I wasn't noticing. And then finally, my sweet husband says to me, "You're being antisocial, get in the pool." So I jump in the pool, and I shake off my wrist, and he goes, "Oh, did you set your watch to water mode?" And best friend Jess, very much in on the joke, goes, "Oh no, not your fancy new birthday watch." And we all start laughing, and I'm laughing at the clap back, but I'm still oblivious to the fact that all of the people I love the most had set this entire scenario up to get me into a pool with my watch on my wrist, so that then I could turn around and see my husband handing me my very own prettily bowed and very well-branded box. There's a little more. Darling husband, I hope you loved your 50th birthday. I hope that you will always remember that I got you a stupid expensive watch, a pound of my neuroses, and a story we will tell for many years to come. Thank you.
Give it up again for Rachel. So now we're going to take a 15 to 20-minute intermission here. Aside from getting drinks and going to the bathroom, don't forget to fill out your cards to share your best, worst, or weirdest gifts ever. Vote on your favorite theme, for season 14, and make a donation to True Theater. Instructions for both are actually going to be on the screen. Buy a subscription at the incredibly low price of $60 down at the box office. This is the cheapest it will be. One more time, $60. You can even get a t-shirt, although those will be available, throughout the rest of the night. So we'll see you back here in about 15 or 20 minutes or so for 2 more great stories. Once again, Preston Bell Charles III. Now, you really should know a little bit more about this great man. Preston busks all over and plays in venues all around town, but he also teaches at Wyoming Fine Arts Center, is the music director of the Cincy Hip Hop Orchestra, which he founded during the pandemic, and he's played all over the world. He also finds time to work for his father at the Preston Charles Funeral Home, and is the proud father of 2 daughters and a son. Now, Preston is also a dedicated advocate, for those affected disproportionately by the war on drugs, bringing awareness to the lack of attention given to mental health issues as part of his efforts.
Yeah. And he's just finished work on his second documentary, a film called Divided Roots, Seeing is Believing, a film designed to open Cincinnatians' eyes to what neighborhoods all around Cincinnati have to offer and to encourage folks to explore them and to become even more Cincinnatian. It was the impetus and the motivation behind us making True Hood our first show for season 14. This movie, yeah. It is brilliant. The movie will eventually be online, but you could actually see it this Sunday if you're around at the National Underground Freedom Center. So check that out. Let's have one more round of applause for Preston. Good job, man. All right, so the results are in. I was looking at, I got the little bar chart here on my phone. You're not going to be able to see it, but you're going to have to take my word for it. I'll publish it online. True Weddings, as it turns out, was one person voted for it. So I guess we won't be sticking that in the hat next time. True Forgiveness had a decent show. 9 people were interested. And so it came down to True Magic and True Scams. I was backstage right before coming out here showing somebody. I was like, oh, True Magic's always been the also-ran. It's always come in second, and it looks like it's winning this time. But no, at the last minute, True Scams went ahead 13-12. So think about your scam-related stories now.
Speaking of scam stories, if you think you have a story that might fit one of our 4 themes for the next season, hood, money, hand, or scams, let us hear from you. There are many ways to reach us, but the best is by going onto our website at truetheater.org and filling out the form on our Submit a Story page.
And to keep abreast of when we start actively putting each show together, be sure to follow us. We're at True Theater on most of the biggest social media platforms, or get on our mailing list by going to our website at truetheater.org. Just remember, we spell theater the fancy way, ending in R-E.
Speaking of fancy, now's a good time to sample some of these best, worst, weirdest gifts you told us about in the cards you filled out. Too late to regret it now.
I just pulled one out at random. Oh, this is anonymous. When I saw a cute sheet draped over a large Christmas gift from my hubby one year, I was sure it was the massage table I'd been dreaming of. Nope, an elliptical to stay fit and healthy. Every woman loves when her man gets her exercise equipment. You want to pull one out?
Absolutely. One year, my husband gave me an iPod. It's been a while. And he preloaded music on it for me. Music to walk to, 2, music to ride to. I walk marathons, we had Harleys, and go to sleep, my love. All his smooth jazz that puts me to sleep. It was really sweet. From Lori.
Lovely.
Very nice.
Somebody got a Red Ryder BB gun. Oh, Paul. He called it his best. I guess we got time for another one. That was a short.
Best gift. Pack of 100 cockroaches to hide from my mom. We've been hiding them from each other for years. That sounds like a story.
True Cockroach, next season. Forget True Scam. All right, last one. So it doesn't say, Jess, if this is a best or a worst, but let's see. It's a purse lamp from my godmother from a thrift shop. I feel like I need a picture, LOL. So was that a best, Jess? Was it lovely? It was weirdest. A purse lamp. So it was a lamp. It was a purse. So she'll send a picture and we'll post it online. All right, folks, thanks. We'll read some more of those a little bit later. Thank you for playing around with that. Yeah, keep in mind, this keeps buzzing because I'm getting texts while we stand here. All right, now back to the show. All right, our next storyteller is a two-time published author and owner of Noble Barbershop and Salon in Corryville, where he hosts the Gifted event, where special needs children can get the patience, empathy, accommodation, and understanding needed to receive the experience of an upstanding haircut. Videos of him working have gone viral on TikTok and Instagram, which has led to numerous television appearances and national recognition. And just today, he cut my hair and trimmed my beard. Look at this. Please give a warm welcome to Vernon Jackson.
Forecasting my life has never been a strong suit of mine. In high school, my teachers, my mom, they would ask me, so what's your plan? What do you want to do with your life, with your future? I'm like, my future? I'm trying to figure out my life right now. But if it wasn't for people in my life like my cosmetology teacher who encouraged me to join in the field of cosmetology, which I graduated with my license in, or my mentors who encouraged me to pursue the career and my passion, rather, in spoken word poetry and putting on showcases around the city, I don't know where I would be today. So, for the first few years out of high school, I was very passionate and focused on doing poetry. And then I cut hair, to me, on the side to be my sponsor for my passions, right? But I really never loved cutting hair. I liked it, but I didn't love it. And so, I became really good at it still because I've always been a creative. However, one time I was doing a haircut because I was getting a lot of fame. People was like really recognizing me. I was cutting I cut famous people like, Big Sean and, Fabulous, in the hip hop industry. I'm feeling myself a little bit. But I was doing a haircut with a guy, and I'm over it, and I'm like, man, out of nowhere, I started talking to a guy. I said, Dad, listen, I don't know why you got me here. What's the bigger picture with this thing? But I'm not feeling it. Not like I feel when I'm doing poetry. I gotta feel, I'm not feeling connected here. I need more out of this. Meanwhile, the guy whose hair I'm cutting has no idea how over his haircut I really am. But hey, it is what it is. But in conjunction with cutting hair, then there was cutting kids' hair, okay? If you knew me outside of, my poetry, or you knew me outside of cutting hair, you would know Vernon Jackson loved the kids. I love the kids, and the kids love me too. So much so that my church family called me the baby whisperer. I was he. But in doing that and volunteering, I was tethered to love and grace with the children. In cutting hair in the job, I was tethered to time and money. And cutting kids was one of the most challenging things I've ever had to do. I don't know what it was about walking to the barbershop, into the chair, that had kids going nuts. Snotty noses, sweating profusely. If you have kids and you raise kids, it's like, how alligators have the death roll, whatnot, right? Kids have this thing, they go like dead body limp when they don't want to be bothered, right? And so it was, and I had my time scheduled out for 15 minutes to do these haircuts. And I was always running late, and I was frustrated because I'm a time nut too. So time and money, it was all messed up because I was late for all my other appointments. But then there were cutting kids with different needs. Same age group, but times it by 10 sometimes. I mean, the meltdowns, the screaming, the crying. And a lot of times what happens is the parents would never call or give me a heads up on what I was going to, encounter. So I had no way of preparing. So everything was a surprise. And again, I was still late past that. There was a family that came in to get their haircut. Single mother, 4 kids, 2 boys, and those 2 boys were autistic. And I just about dreaded the haircut process. I was over it before it happened. But it was moments like these that I had experienced multiple times before, that the inspiration and idea that I should set aside time to cut kids with a designated time just for them when no one's around with special needs. But in a time, I was still focused and passionate about doing poetry and doing life my own way. I had my own vision on, yeah, that's a good idea, but I want this over here. And I did it, and I did pretty good at it. But it just wasn't fulfilling as much. So one day, I am in the shop with my old colleague. We're sitting there, and I'm asking him, what's his future plans? What he want to do? He's like, think about buying my own shop, whatnot. Because at this point, the shop that I was working in, of my friend's shop, had 8 chairs in it, and it was like 4 of us left in the shop. So I'm like, let's try and get a litmus test. I like that word, litmus test. I felt smart when I said that. So I was doing a litmus test, of what his plans were. And, he told me what they were. I said, dude, let's just buy this shop right here. We already got it, bro. Let's make it happen. He was like, I said, I'll go home and think about it. So he goes home, thinks about it, and comes back. He said, let's do it. And so we pull the trigger and we do it. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm out walking out I'm out with a friend. I'm down at her job, and a young man walks up who's 18, who's on the spectrum, and she happens to be a speech pathologist. I mean, her heart and her care, that's how she lit up, and she just, welcomed him in to the space. It was like one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And I divulged, and hey, what's crazy is I've been having this idea to, set aside time to do haircuts for kids with different needs at the shop. She said, Vern, this kind of face, this is the face she did. She's like, Vern, you should do it. How can you not do that? That face right there is enough right there. I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go home and think about it. I went home. I mean, I don't know what it was about that moment. Maybe it was her face. I don't know. But I went home and I took the thought seriously. I started brainstorming. Well, if I'm gonna do it, I gotta come up with a name. And so the name I thought about was Gifted, right? And I'm like, well, sometimes the name Gifted is associated with kids that are geniuses, whatnot. I'm like, but people with different needs are geniuses as well. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna call it the Gifted Event. There we go. Now, when I'm gonna do it, how to choose one of my off days. I'm a man of my off days. You hear me? I protect my time like it's Fort Knox. You cannot get into it, right? But I'm like, I gotta do one of my off days. So I decided to do it the 3rd Monday of every month from 1 to 5. And I said, well, how much I'm gonna charge for it? I'm gonna charge the same amount of money I charge for all the other kids doing the regular scheduled times I have doing it. I said, there we go. I make the flyer, I post it on Instagram. I'm like, it's gonna hit. I mean, there's gonna be a whole lot of people that wanna get the kids done, right? Nah. The first one had 3, which is fine, it's cool. We working here. It wasn't empty, but 3 came through. But in between the first one and the second one, magic started happening. In that time, I had a couple of my friends inbox me. One particular hit me up. He said, Vern, can I sponsor a haircut? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, I guess so. And then it happened again. And I made a post on my Instagram and say, yo, it's so cool how people are starting to rally behind these families and support by sponsoring haircuts. And out of the woodwork, people just started sending, how can I support? Can I sponsor a haircut? Can I sponsor a haircut? I'm like, well, this is amazing. And at this moment, I started seeing how this was starting to take hold. And as I'm cutting kids' hair, let's do this. The second one, I had 5 kids. The third one had 8 kids. It started getting booked because what happened was the word started spreading. People at Cincinnati Children's heard about what I was doing and started sending families my way. I'm like, oh, this is wild. So I start recording the haircut experiences so that people can see and experience what I was experiencing. I'm like, this is wow. And what was so cool about these experiences was like being able to tell parents that the service was free. So as time moves forward, one of the videos I posted back in January of this year goes viral. It went viral. I'm like, I went to bed one night, woke up the next day, had like 14,000 views. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I checked it later on that afternoon. It was at 65,000 views. I'm like, oh, this is going up. Within 2 weeks, that video had garnered 3.3 million views. I know. I know. And since then, right? Listen, I know it gets better, right? It gets better. So since then, I was contacted by, Today's Show featured on their page. Good Morning America featured on their page. I mean, J-Lo commented, said my video made her day. I know. I had to hop in her DMs too. I had to do it. I had to say thank you, J-Lo. Like, seriously. And then, Fox Newsroom had interviewed me online, live, and so much support was coming in around the world. And it's so beautiful because it was not about me, about the bigger picture with these kids. That now, because the kid I went viral with was my good friend Ellison Eubanks. If you go back later on, you see the video, you see how beautiful his energy was. Because a lot of times when the kids come to see me, they have had bad experiences, just like the one I mentioned to you earlier. Man, Jennifer Hudson had invited myself and Ellis's mom out to California to interview with her in studio. I'm like, this is amazing. The beauty in how gifted works is this. The public gives the gifts of sponsoring the haircuts. And in return, are in a position to receive how their donations, how their sponsorship are creating memories and seeing how the kids are just loved and how they're able to just come in and see how we're all interacting. The parents get the gift of making an environment of love that they want their child to experience a life. It's like we all experience life. And in return, they receive the grace and put into position for some of them for the first time in a long time for a service they would pay any amount of money for. They get to get it for free. I can't tell you the amount of times I have fathers in their pride, like, I gotta give you something. I'm like, no, this is an opportunity that we both get to do this thing. And I get to give my gift of being patient, loving, that I never had any other place. But whatever God was doing, he did right. Being patient, seeing the child for where they are and how they are and not rushing them into a space that they're not ready yet. I allow them to be fully in their position and I follow them. They're not following me. And that way, they're seen. What's crazy is that family that I mentioned to you earlier, the mother of 4, the 2 boys that were autistic, she reached out to me a couple months ago. And she said, Vern, like, I'm happy for you and the growth in your program is beautiful. But me and my family, we didn't receive the same love, the same energy from you. I said, you're right. And your perspective and your experience is totally valid. But back then, I was doing my job. But now I'm doing my mission. At one point in time, I was cutting hair to make a living. Now I get to cut hair to make a difference. People ask me, like, man, Vern, like, what's the next move for Gifted? What do you have planned for it? I mean, honestly, like, I never had a plan for my life. Like, I never had a forecast, right? But everything that has happened since the beginning of the story has been a surprise. And I think that if I ever had a forecast of my life, all those moments would not have been a surprise that I was able to receive. So with that being said, not knowing what the future may hold, but the future looks bright for Gifted and the Gifted event. Sometimes the best gifts are surprises. Thank you.
Can I get another round of applause for Vernon? Even though for some reason he didn't cut my hair. I feel some kind of way about that. So we had so much fun the first time. We decided to read a few more of your best, worst, weirdest gifts. I don't know what's happening over there, but it must be fun. Best gift, 10-speed bike when I was 12. Worst, pet turtle that I killed accidentally. Thank you for leaving that anonymous. Weirdest, water jug instead of a wedding ring on our anniversary. Even a weird color. WTF. My mother-in-law is white, and she bought me a picture of a black woman in a towel to hang up. Why? I'm not going to call you out, but I know who you are because you wrote your name on this. I can't believe I chose this one as well, but booty door stop wearing a Speedo. I feel like that could be all three of them. But that was fun. Thank you so much for participating. Good place to stop. And now, our final storyteller tonight describes herself as a serial connector, working to remain continuously curious. She is passionate about her community, her work in health policy, and advancing strategies to improve the health and well-being of children living in poverty. If you want to see her face light up, just ask her about her grandchildren, Riker and May. Among her many achievements is serving as mayor to Beaver Creek, Ohio, earning 2 degrees from the University of Dayton, where she is now a trustee emeritus, and has been married to her husband, Jack, for 42 years. Please welcome Vicki Giambrone.
Well, not too long ago, I experienced one of those milestone birthdays, and it was a big one. I turned 60. Okay, this is the part where you're supposed to gasp and go, "Oh my God, you don't look 60." Thank you. Yeah, like one nice lady right there, thank you. And you know, anytime you have one of those milestone birthdays, people always ask a lot of questions. What are you gonna do now that you're 60? How do you feel now that you're 60? And some people use those birthdays to make change. So like some of my girlfriends also turned 60, and one of them let her hair grow white. One of them quit her job to become an organic farmer, and one of them quit wearing a bra. I'm not sure why. But it was different for me because ever since I turned 18, my birthdays have always been different. My birthdays have always brought this emotional swing between unbelievable gratitude and overwhelming fear. Because when I turned 18, I got cancer. It was 1978, and I was the first person in my family to go to college. And there I was on the campus of the University of Dayton. Go Flyers! And I loved it. And I had been there for a few months, and I had met this really cute boy. And he had invited me to his house for Thanksgiving. And I was really excited, and I was working hard on impressing his mom, so I was helping her in the kitchen. I was chatting her up, and she told me that she was a nurse. And as I turned my head to say something to her, this knot that I had had on my neck for a while popped out. She said, "Do that again," and I did, and she felt the knot on my neck, and she said, "No, I don't think it's anything to worry about, but promise me when you go home tomorrow, you'll go to the doctor and have them look at it. Well, I'm a hillbilly girl, and we only went to the doctor when we were really, really sick. But this boy was really, really cute, and so I wanted to impress him and his mom. So the next day, I went to the doctor in my little town, and the doctor felt the knot on my neck, and he said, I think you have swollen glands. And he was about to write me a prescription, but as luck would have it, his son was home for Thanksgiving, and he was a resident at Ohio State, and he was making rounds with his dad. And he said, Dad, I don't think it's anything for her to worry about, but I think we should send her to the hospital for a test. Well, back then, it was a really big deal to go to the hospital for a test. And my folks didn't have any insurance, and it was really expensive. But they talked it over, and they talked to the doctor, and they all thought I should do it. So off I went the next day to the hospital for the test. And by the end of that day, I learned I had cancer. Now, when anybody looks you in the eye and tells you you had cancer, your world changes in an instant. But when you're a teenager, it's earth-shattering. Every thought and hope that you had for your future, graduating from college, traveling around the world, getting married, having a baby, it's all gone in an instant. And then the questions come. What's going to happen to me? Am I going to die? And in fact, they told my folks that with my kind of cancer, I had about 6 months before the cancer would come back because the only treatment they had was radiation, and it wasn't a cure. It was just a way to push it off for a while. And I was absolutely terrified. And my family wanted me to quit college and come home, and I just couldn't do that. I just couldn't sit around and wait for something to happen. I decided I was going to push forward, and I was going to pack in as much as I could in whatever time I had. And so I went back to school. I went to every treatment. I went to every class. I went to every party. I smoked a lot of pot. I drank a lot of beer, and I had a lot of boyfriends because I thought I was dying. And, oh yeah. And I got 10 really good months before the cancer came back. And I also got really, really lucky because in that 10 months, a new chemotherapy had been developed that revolutionized the outcomes for my kind of cancer. And I took the treatment and I went into remission. And even though the treatment was such a gift, and I was so unbelievably grateful, I just couldn't take the paralyzing fear that thought some minute, just in any minute, my luck might run out and it might come back. And so it was in that moment that I began my life of pushing as hard as I could to pack in as much life as I could just in case. And boy, did I push. I graduated college early. I landed my dream job at Procter & Gamble. I got married. I even had a baby when the doctor said I never would. And all the while just pushing as hard as I could every minute and every day. And every year on my birthday, I would experience that swing, that unbelievable gratitude for the gift of another year, and that overwhelming fear that it might just be my last. But always pushing forward and silently afraid that if I stopped, it just might catch me. And then on my 35th birthday, it did. I had gone to the doctor for the checkups that they make you do whenever you've had cancer, and the doctor said, hey, we just learned about this study that says young women like you who've had radiation and chemotherapy are at greater risk for breast cancer. And he said, I don't think there's anything to worry about, but we're going to send you to the hospital for a test. That's right. I went to the hospital for a test, and by the end of that day, they said, we are so sorry, but you have breast cancer, and it's really aggressive, and we don't know what's going to happen to you. And I had been there before, but this time was very different because I had a 12-year-old daughter. And this time my head filled with questions about her. What's this going to do to her? What's her life going to be like? And while I have a really great husband, and he's a really good guy and a good dad, he's a football coach who grew up with a bunch of brothers and still says brazier. And so I'm just telling you, the idea of leaving my 12-year-old daughter to go through puberty and bra shopping with a guy who said brassiere was absolutely terrifying. And so I did what I do best. I pushed even harder. I pushed my husband to step it up in the parenting game, and he was already good. I pushed my poor sweet daughter packing in every lesson I could think of and every experience so that she would have all the memories that I thought she needed. But mostly I pushed me. I created professional tapes for every moment in my daughter's life just in case I wouldn't be there. I wrote letters to everybody telling them how I really felt, good and bad, just in case. I pushed for the latest, highest dose chemotherapy. I got the surgery and the new boobs, and it pushed me to my limit. And I got so lucky again, and I went into remission. And even though I felt this unbelievable gratitude for the gift of more time, I just couldn't shake that overwhelming fear. I just couldn't imagine what it would be like if I stopped pushing, because if I did, what if it caught me again? And so I lived that way for another 20 years, and every birthday I would have that swing, the unbelievable gratitude and the overwhelming fear. And then when I turned 55, I went for my cancer checkup, and as I listened to the doctors talk, it occurred to me that I had lived so much longer than they had ever expected. My daughter was grown. I had lived long enough to see her graduate from college, get married, and she was living her life. And I had been successful in my career, and I had built financial stability for my family, something I had always worried about. And as I thought about it, even if I died that day, I had already achieved more than I had ever dreamed of. Yet I felt empty and disconnected, because living a life of pushing is hard on you and everyone around you. And it was never enough. I always thought we could jam more in. And suddenly I was really tired, and so were they. And I realized that I had spent so much time pushing forward and moving so fast that I had missed the moments. And I had missed the opportunity to really experience life. And so I decided it had to stop. And I took a really deep breath, and I gave myself a gift. I quit my high-pressure job. I started my own company so I could decide where I was going to spend my time. I got myself a therapist, and I spent the next few years really working on me and my relationships with my family. And what I learned is that they were really afraid too, and all they had ever really wanted was to just be with me. And so I started to focus on just being still, being more aware, being present, and being in the moment. And so now as I hit my birthdays, I'm not making a lot of change. I'm keeping the hair color and I'm keeping the bra. But I've stopped pushing. And I gotta tell you, it is the hardest thing that I have ever had to do, because being still is so much harder than pushing. Because in that stillness, the fear can still be so overwhelming. But what I learned is that the only way to get to the other side of the fear and really live is to just be. And that is such an incredible gift.
One more time for Vicki. Was that your line?
No, that was yours.
Yes. And all our storytellers tonight. Peter, Lauren, Rachel, Vernon, and Vicki.
And Preston Bell Jones III.
All our friends helping out tonight, selling t-shirts, taking pictures, working lights, live streaming, working backstage. All of you here, all of you there. We couldn't do it without you. It takes a village. Oh, and we look forward to seeing you again for season 14 when you all come back here on October 26th for True Hood. But until then,
Be true.
good night.
Good night.